My name is Lydia Bramwell, and I am 30 years old. There are two types of silence, the kind that comforts and the kind that echoes. I learned the second kind at 10 years old when my parents drove me to my grandfather's farm, hugged me on the gravel, and told me I was going on an adventure. Their taillights disappeared at the end of the dirt road, a red horizon that never turned around. People like to say a farm is never quiet. They're right. The diesel cough of the tractor, the hen's tart gossip, the wind testing each fence post, none of it is silence. My grandfather, Harlan, filled whatever remained. He taught me how to check the weather by the taste of the air, how to keep books honest, and how to grow something worth harvesting. He never spoke badly about my parents. Sometimes, when he thought I was asleep, he'd stand at the screen door and look down the driveway the way I did, long enough to make hope feel like a superstition. He raised me to keep moving. So I did. I studied agriculture and business because I knew how to turn drought into stubbornness and stubbornness into yield. Junior year of college, Grandpa's heart quit in the fields he loved. I held the grief like a hot pot. You keep moving or you get burned. He left me the farm, the books, the cracked coffee mug that said Harlan's, and a scuffed toolbox filled with secrets that were only ever practical. I modernized the place. Drip lines, soil senses, efficient rotations. A crew I paid on time and treated like tomorrow depended on them, because it did. 5 years later, the farm wasn't just surviving. It was a business with my name on the invoices and my hands still in the dirt. That was the year I made a choice Grandpa would have called loud. I hired a manager I trusted and bought a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs an hour from the city where my parents had stayed all these years. People hear suburbs and imagine white fences and new beginnings. I heard old voices, but I wanted to try to build an adult version of family that wasn't all echo. I told myself I could handle proximity without expectation. I also told myself I was done waiting at the end of driveways. 3 months in, my life was gentle, almost. The mornings started with coffee and market reports. The afternoons were video calls with my manager Amir about yields and payroll. And nights, when schedules didn't collide, were dinner with my boyfriend, Daniel Reyes, a civil engineer with patient hands and a habit of listening that made me suspicious at first and grateful later. If past Lydia needed rescuing, present Lydia needed proof. Daniel understood the difference. His past included an ex-girlfriend named Maya, who haunted him mostly through the architecture of what-ifs. He learned to stop walking through her old floor plans. It was a Wednesday when my mother called. Her voice had that high lilt it gets when there's a pitch at the end of it. "Liddy, your father and I were thinking, could we come by Friday? We'd love to see the new house." "Friday's fine," I said, because I've always been polite to the people who taught me silence. They arrived with a bottle of wine and 2 smiles that didn't match. My father scrutinized the crown molding like it owed him rent. My mother touched the back of each dining chair, a queen knighting furniture. I served roast chicken and salad fresh from a farm crate that still smelled like morning. "We're proud of you," my mother said, tasting the word like it might be bitter. "All this, so lovely." My father cleared his throat. "You always had a head for business." He meant, "You got it from me." I let it pass. My mother swirled her wine. "We've been talking," she announced lightly, "and we've decided to sell the family home." "That makes sense," I said. "It's too big now." She smiled. "Exactly. And, well, this is fortuitous timing." The word fortuitous fell like a penny in a deep well. My father leaned in. "We realized. A perfect solution. You have extra bedrooms. We need a place to stay while we figure out our retirement. Just for a bit." I stared at the platters between us. Chicken bones, a scoop of salad, the bottle sweating on the table. I waited for the punchline and heard only the refrigerator hum. "You want to move in with me?" I said. And it wasn't quite a question. "Temporarily," my mother said quickly. "A year, maybe less. We can reconnect. Do holidays properly. Family's family, Lydia." Family's family. The phrase pressed on a bruise 20 years old. "What about the proceeds from selling your house?" I asked. "We'll need that for retirement," my father replied, as if I were dense. "Property values have skyrocketed. It's our nest egg." "So you sell, keep the cash, and live here rent-free," I said, "while we reconnect." My mother's smile went papery. "When you phrase it that way, it sounds unkind." "Does it?" She set her glass down. "You have space. We have needs. This is what families do." The refrigerator clicked off. The kitchen found a deeper stillness. In the quiet, I heard the gravel of Grandpa's drive, the crunch of tires leaving. I'll think about it, I said. They both looked faintly offended by the verb. My mother rallied. Lovely dinner, darling, she said, collecting her purse. At the door, my father turned to examine the foyer mirror, and for a pulse of a second I saw, reflected, a younger me cupping my hands to the glass of a back window as a car eased away. After they left, the house exhaled. I did dishes by hand because machines felt too loud for the night I was having. The water ran hot enough to sting. Daniel texted, "How'd it go? Do you want company?" I typed, "They want to move in," then added, "Can we talk tomorrow?" I wasn't ready to put my voice into the space. He wrote back, "Anytime. Sleep if you can." Sleep came like a thief who took my rest and left old pictures. Flash, my 10th birthday, a thrift store cake with Grandpa's careful handwriting and icing. Flash, my high school graduation photo. Me and Harlan, his palm heavy and proud on my shoulder, the other half of the frame not empty so much as unoccupied by choice. Flash, my voicemail in college, my mother's holiday messages always a chorus of "so busy but we love you." Love as voicemail, parenthood as calendar conflict. In the morning, I jogged because motion tames thinking. Mid-stride, a thought arrived, so clean it felt like a bell. I won't do this their way, not again, not with euphemisms, not with history framed as ancient, so today can be convenient. If we were going to talk about them living here, we were going to talk about why I ever lived there, the farm, alone. I invited them back for Saturday lunch. My mother sent 3 heart emojis and a gif of clinking glasses. My father replied with a thumbs up, which in his language is a binding contract. Daniel came by Friday night with a bag of groceries and a face that understood more than I had written. "Say it out loud," he said gently, chopping parsley at my counter like he lived here and didn't. Yet. "They want to sell their house, keep the money, move in with me, and call it reconnecting," I said. "They think time means there's nothing to discuss about the farm, about me." "Will you tell them?" "I'll ask them to say it first," I said. "I want to hear the story in their own words, the one they told themselves, the one they told my sisters." "Emily and Sophie?" he asked. 2 years younger than me, twins. They grew up with a version where I begged to stay with Grandpa because I loved it so much. Maybe that's easier to believe than the truth. Daniel slid the cutting board toward me. "You don't have to host them tomorrow." "I do," I said. "Not to feed them. To finally talk to them." He nodded. "I'll be here after." I smiled, a brief thing that felt like a stretch. "Good. I might need someone to remind me what a kitchen looks like if I end up flipping the table." He grinned. "I'll bring a backup table." When he left, I walked through the house turning off lamps. In the dim, the walls seemed to breathe with me. I paused at the foyer mirror, the one my father had admired, and saw a woman who had learned to grow in corners where she hadn't been planted. I touched the glass. Childish, maybe. But there was a promise in it that didn't need words. No more pretending the driveway was a choice I made. Saturday would not be an ambush. It would be an excavation. Of their version. Of mine. Of the distance between them. And afterward, whatever happened, I would decide. Not as the girl who waited, but as the woman who finally stopped. The doorbell rang at noon on the dot. I breathed once, deep enough to taste the weather the way Grandpa taught me, and opened the door. "Lydia, we brought lemon tart," my mother sang, lifting the box like an offering. "Let's eat after we talk," I said, stepping aside. The quiet that followed wasn't empty, it was ready. My parents sat at my kitchen table as if it were a witness stand. Noonlight cut across the marble like the farm's irrigation lines. Precise, unavoidable. My mother folded the napkin on her lap into a tiny sailboat that would never float. My father examined the lemon tart as though sweetness could be audited. "I'm glad we could do this," my mother began, voice syrupy. "Fresh start." "Me too," I said. "Let's start at the beginning." "The beginning?" My father frowned. "We're here to discuss logistics, bedrooms, a timeline. We brought listings of retirement communities we're considering later." "We can get to logistics," I said evenly. "But first, the farm. Why I lived there. I want to hear your version, out loud." A silence fell that wasn't quite silent, more like the breath before a door slams. My mother placed the napkin boat on her plate and smoothed her skirt. "That was a long time ago, Lydia," she said lightly. "There's no sense dragging the past into—" "It's already here," I said. "It never left." My father's jaw flexed. "Your grandfather was getting older. He needed help. You loved the farm. It suited you. It was an answer polished by 2 decades of repetition, a stone rubbed smooth in their pockets. I set my palms on the table. Grandpa told me he never asked for me. He told me he begged you to bring me back. My mother's smile thinned. Harlan could be dramatic. He could be honest, I said. And I want honesty now. You had newborn twins. You felt overwhelmed. You decided 3 children were too many. You chose the farm for me because it was convenient. Say it. My father flushed a color I'd only seen when he missed a sale or a flight. That's an uncharitable interpretation. It's accurate, I said, my voice calm enough to scare me. My mother lifted her chin. Oh, we did the best we could. We visited. We called. We made sure you were provided for. You did not show up, I said softly. You missed my first school play, my first broken heart, my high school graduation. Grandpa stood in the bleachers and clapped until his hands hurt. I scanned the parking lot for your car until the shadows were long. My father's gaze flickered. Your sister had a recital. I know, I said. I remember the voicemail. We wanted to be there, sweetheart, next time. There was always a next time for promises, never for showing up. The refrigerator clicked and hummed to life, as if to fill the space where their answers should have gone. My mother reached for the tart box, then thought better of it. Lydia, she said, and to her credit, her voice gentled. We can't undo the past. We're trying now. We want to be close. This house is mine, I said. Close doesn't start with moving in. It starts with telling the truth. My father folded his arms. So what do you want? Groveling? A confession written in blood? I want you not to pretend this is normal, I answered. I want you not to label abandonment a logistical hiccup. I want, if you're going to ask me for a year of my home, you to acknowledge the years you didn't ask where I slept. The napkin boat looked pitiful on the china. My mother flicked it aside, and the gesture said more than her words. Fine, she said, cool once more. We were overwhelmed. We sent you to Harlan because we thought it would be best. You turned out fine. Because Harlan was a parent, I said. Because he did the job. That's unfair, my father snapped. It's the math, I said. Inputs and outputs. He exhaled hard, as if something inside him hurt. Are we done? We are, I said. With one more thing. You won't be moving in. The refusal landed like a gate slamming. My mother's eyes flashed. After everything we've done. After everything you haven't, I said. My father pushed back his chair, the legs screeching. Come on, Diana. He used her name like a gavel. At the door, he paused, not turning. You'll regret this, he said without heat, as if stating a weather forecast. Maybe, I said, but not for the reason you think. They left the lemon tart. I didn't touch it. The sugar would have turned to sand in my mouth. I texted Daniel. It's done. They asked. I said no. He replied almost immediately. Proud of you. Need me? Later. Going for a walk first. I'll be here. I walked the neighborhood, the suburban symmetry both soothing and absurd. Children zipped by on scooters. 2 teens practiced a clumsy 3-point turn under a parent's shouted instructions. The ordinariness felt like a foreign country I was maybe, finally, allowed to visit. When my phone buzzed, I expected Daniel. It was Emily. Mom said lunch was tense. Are you okay? Can we get coffee? Just us? Her message was careful, like stepping stones across cold water. I stared at it a long moment, then typed, tomorrow, 10 a.m., Haven Cafe. The cafe smelled like cinnamon and decisions. Emily was already there, 2 cups on the table. She stood as I approached, and for a second she was again the girl in pigtails I watched through living room windows I wasn't supposed to press my face against. I ordered black, 1 sugar, she said, tentative, like when you visited last spring. I smiled despite everything. You remembered. We made small talk for exactly 3 sentences before the air tilted. Mom said you accused them of sending you away, Emily blurted, as if she'd been holding it in since dawn. That you didn't choose the farm. I stirred my coffee. I was 10. They chose. Her eyes searched mine. But growing up, they told us you begged to stay with Grandpa, that you loved the farm, that it was your dream. It became my life, I said. That's different. She went so still her coffee went cold. I don't understand. Then quieter. Why wouldn't they tell us the truth? To protect themselves from us, I said. To protect you from guilt. Maybe both. Her throat worked. All those years I thought you preferred. Her voice broke. I thought we weren't enough for you. This was the collateral damage no one calculates. I reached across the table and took her hand. I never left you, I said. I was taken from you. Those are not the same. Her shoulders caved, relief and grief in one motion. Sophie's going to flip, she whispered, attempting humor and missing. She still has Mom on a pedestal. As if summoned, my phone lit with Sophie. I answered. Emily nodded to put it on speaker. What did you say to them? Sophie's voice came through hot, fast. No hello, no breath. Mom's been crying since yesterday. It was a private conversation, I said, between adults. It's about you refusing to help, isn't it? You have 4 bedrooms, Lydia. You could be decent for once. Decent? The word surprised a laugh out of me. Okay, ask Mom and Dad why I lived at Grandpa's. Ask them for the real answer. Oh my God, Sophie scoffed. I know why. You begged. You always wanted that farm more than us. Emily flinched. I kept my tone even. That's the story they gave you, I said. It's not true. Silence on the line, but not the confident kind. The kind that falters at the edge of a cliff. Fine, Sophie said, voice sharpening. We'll settle this now. There was muffled movement, the rustle of a phone in a different room. I'm calling Mom. Soph, Emily began, but Sophie had already merged the call. Sweetheart, my mother answered, voice still raw. You sent Lydia away when we were babies because you couldn't handle 3 kids, Sophie said, a blade. Tell me I'm wrong. A pause. It stretched so long I could hear the cafe's espresso machine hiss, a tray clatter, someone laugh at a joke that didn't belong to us. Girls, my mother said finally, careful as walking across ice. It was complicated. Your father and I were overwhelmed. We had twins, financial pressure. Harlan offered to help. It was temporary. And then, I never moved back, I cut in. Not for a weekend, not for a year, not ever. Another pause, shorter, uglier. We made the best decision we could, my mother snapped, defense rearming itself. And Lydia was happy there. I adapted, I said. Children do. Sophie's breath came ragged through the speaker. So you did send her away. That's not a fair way to... My mother started. It's accurate, Emily whispered, as if confessing. My mother exhaled hard. I am not having this conversation over the phone. If you want to discuss family history, we will do it properly. At the house. Tonight. The line clicked dead. Emily's eyes were rimmed red. Sophie texted an address a moment later, even though we both knew it by heart, and a time, 7 p.m., be there. It felt like getting a summons. Are you going? Emily asked. I am, I said, not to fight, to finish. We sat a while, 2 sisters with a shared map finally facing the blank legend. On the way out, Emily touched my sleeve. I'm sorry, she said, for believing what was easier. You were a kid, I said. Kids believe what they're told, so they can keep loving the people who tell it. She nodded, tears settling. Will you come early? We can walk around the block first. Breathe. Text me when you're on your way, I said. I'll meet you at the corner with the broken street lamp. She smiled, the old neighborhood's private compass point still coded into us both. Outside, the day had decided to be bright. It felt almost indecent. I stood on the curb and thought of the farm's long drive, of letters I didn't yet know existed, of a porch where hope learned to pace itself. At 6:45, Daniel took my hand at the door. You don't have to go alone. I won't be, I said, thinking of Emily's careful coffee and Sophie's cracking voice. I'll have witnesses, and a spine. He kissed my forehead. Call if you need a getaway car. I can drive my own, I said, smiling. But it's nice knowing you'd floor it. I met Emily at the corner. We walked once around the block, the house looming like a storybook castle we'd both outgrown. At 6:59, Sophie stepped onto the porch and lifted a shaking hand to wave us in. Inside, the living room was staged. My parents side by side on the sofa, the coffee table cleared as if for exhibits. The air tasted like plastic and lemon polish. Let's clear the air, my father said. No, I answered and sat. Let's clear the record. The room held its breath. For the first time in our family, so did the lie. The air in my parents' living room was thick enough to chew. Every clock tick, every shallow inhale felt amplified, like even the walls wanted to hear what would finally be said. My father cleared his throat first, the way men do before rewriting history. We're here to clear up some misunderstandings, he said, glancing at my mother as though she'd hand him the right lines. There's no misunderstanding, I replied. I told Emily and Sophie the truth about why I lived with Grandpa. You're the ones who've been rewriting it. My mother's smile was the same one she used on neighbors when she didn't want them to see the cracks. Lydia, dear, there's no need for drama. We made a decision that was best for everyone at the time. Best for you, I corrected. You two decided 3 children were too much. You kept the twins and sent me away. That's not fair, my father snapped, voice already raised. We were drowning, financially and emotionally. Your grandfather offered. No, I cut him off. He didn't offer. He told me you called him. He told me he didn't even understand why until he saw me standing there with a packed suitcase. Emily sat rigid on the edge of the couch, fingers knotted in her lap. Sophie stared between us, her earlier fury traded for disbelief. You said she wanted to go, Sophie whispered, that she cried when she had to come home for holidays. I was 10, I said softly. I cried because coming home felt like visiting strangers. My mother's composure cracked, her tone sharpening. We did what we thought was best. You were always different, independent. You thrived on that farm. I survived on that farm, I corrected, because Harlan made sure I did. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It pulsed, alive with all the words that had been swallowed over 20 years. Emily broke it. Why didn't you ever tell us the truth? She asked, her voice trembling. Why lie to us about it? My mother's hands fluttered in her lap. Because you were little. We didn't want you to feel guilty. Guilty for what? Emily pressed. For replacing our sister? That landed like a stone through glass. My father stood abruptly. That's enough. We didn't come here for accusations. We came here to move forward as a family. You came here to move in, I said. There's a difference. He glared at me, face red, veins raised. After all we've done, helping you through college, sending money when you needed it. You mean the college tuition Grandpa paid? I said, tilting my head. The same money he wired directly because he didn't trust that you'd follow through. That shut him up. My mother's eyes darted toward him. Confirmation enough. Emily looked gutted. Sophie looked sick. Lydia, my mother tried again, softer now, pleading. We made mistakes. We were young, overwhelmed. You were 30, I said. That's the age I am now. That silenced her. I leaned forward. You know what I've realized? You didn't send me to Grandpa because you couldn't handle me. You sent me away because you could, because he made it easy, because you thought love was something you could outsource. My father's jaw tightened. That's not true. Then why didn't you ever bring me back? He didn't answer. Emily's eyes brimmed with tears. You missed her graduation, her birthdays. Do you even remember when you last saw her before Grandpa died? My mother swallowed. I don't. Sophie whispered, I do. It was the summer I broke my arm. You told us Lydia was busy harvesting. Busy, harvesting, as if childhood could be postponed like a crop season. I was never invited, I said, not once. My father turned away. Enough of this. You've had 20 years to make your peace. I did make peace, I said, standing. Just not with you. Emily stood too. You owe her an apology, she said, voice trembling but fierce. My mother blinked rapidly. Emily, sweetheart, this isn't about sides. Yes, it is, Emily snapped. You can't erase what you did just because it's inconvenient to remember. Sophie sat back, arms crossed, breathing uneven. Is this why you called this meeting? To get us to gang up on them? She asked me. No, I said quietly. To stop pretending we ever had a family to begin with. That broke something. My mother started crying, the kind of tears meant for an audience. My father reached for her hand, his own shaking slightly. We did what we thought was right, he murmured. No, I said, moving toward the door. You did what was easy. Emily followed me to the foyer. Lydia, wait. I turned. Her face was pale, her hands trembling around her phone. I can't believe this, she whispered. All these years. Sophie appeared behind her. I need time, she muttered, voice cracking, to process everything, to even look at them. That's fair, I said. You're allowed to take time. I took 20 years. My mother's voice rose behind us, brittle and desperate. Lydia, please, don't leave like this. I turned back. You left first, I said. The door closed behind me with the weight of a final verdict. Outside, the air was cold, the kind that wakes you up and stings your eyes. Emily and Sophie stood in the yard beside me, both silent. Sophie spoke first. I don't even know what to say. You don't have to, I said. Just don't pretend it didn't happen. Emily looked at me, tears streaking her face. I'm sorry, she whispered, for believing their story, for not asking sooner. You were kids, I said. They told you what would keep the family quiet. Do you think they'll ever admit it? Sophie asked. I shook my head. They already did, just not in words. We stood there in the fading light, 3 siblings with no script for what came next. The porch light flickered on behind us, casting long shadows across the lawn. Emily reached out and squeezed my hand. It's not too late, you know, for us. For us, I repeated, the words catching in my throat. Maybe that's the only family that matters now. As I walked back to my car, the sky turned the same color as the soil after rain, raw and clean. For the first time in years, I felt lighter, even as my heart ached. When I got home, Daniel was waiting on the porch. He didn't say anything at first. He just opened his arms. I stepped into them and let the silence hold me. The good kind, the healing kind. "Did you get what you needed?" he asked finally. "Not from them," I said, "but maybe from my sisters." He nodded. "That's a start." We stood there as night gathered, and for the first time in my life, the dark didn't feel empty. 3 weeks passed. The air had cooled enough for the mornings to smell like memory, cold dew, and earth. I spent most of those mornings on the porch of my farmhouse, coffee mug balanced on the railing, trying to let silence feel safe again. Emily texted every few days, little check-ins. Sophie, at first, didn't. Then, one afternoon, I got a message from her out of nowhere. "Do you still have Grandpa's photo albums?" I told her yes, and she replied, "Can I come by this weekend? I think I need to see them." When Saturday came, both she and Emily showed up, together. It felt like ghosts arriving, but this time, ones I wanted to see. They wandered through the house like they were walking through my life for the first time, touching framed pictures of harvests, the old wooden clock, the shelf where Grandpa's tools rested like relics. "Wow," Emily murmured, tracing a photo of Grandpa standing beside the red barn. "He looks so proud here." "He was," I said quietly. "That picture was taken the day I bought out the neighboring lot. He told everyone in town his granddaughter was running a real business now." Sophie looked around. "It's beautiful here," she said, and her voice cracked a little. "I get why you stayed." "I didn't have anywhere else to go," I said, not bitter, just true. We spent the morning flipping through photo albums. I watched their faces change as they saw snapshots of the years they'd missed. Me on the tractor, me at 17 holding a county fair ribbon, Grandpa beside me every time. No parents in sight, not once. At noon, I went to fetch something from the office, the old tin box where Grandpa kept all his important papers. I'd opened it dozens of times for deeds, ledgers, taxes, but this time, something was different. At the bottom, tucked between an old insurance file and a faded map, was a bundle of envelopes tied with twine. Each one was yellowed, addressed in Grandpa's sharp handwriting. All to my parents. None of them mailed. "Emily," I called softly, "you should see this." We carried the bundles to the table. Sophie untied it carefully, hands trembling. The first letter was dated March 1999, the month I moved in with him. "James and Diana, Lydia asks every day when you're coming back for her. She keeps her bag packed. I told her you'd visit soon, though I'm beginning to wonder if I'm lying for your sake or hers. She's a good helper, yes, but she's also a little girl who misses her parents." Sophie clapped a hand over her mouth. Emily's eyes filled instantly. We read the next one, August 2001. "She made the honor roll again. You should have seen her face. She waited by the road for hours after the report cards came out, convinced you'd show up to celebrate. I told her you were proud." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. And another June 2006. "She's almost grown now. Doesn't ask about coming home anymore. I think she's accepted this is her life. She calls me Dad sometimes by accident. I never correct her out loud, but it breaks me every time." By the time we reached the last one, I couldn't see through the blur of tears. "She's off to college next month. If you have any sense of decency left, you'll at least send her a letter. She still keeps hope where she shouldn't. I suppose that's my fault. I taught her to plant things, even when the soil's cruel." The room was silent, except for the sound of Emily quietly sobbing. Sophie stared at the pages like they were evidence in a trial she'd just lost. "Oh my God," she whispered. He begged them. He begged them." I nodded, unable to speak. The paper trembled in my hands. "He saw everything," I managed. "All of it. He just couldn't fix it." Emily reached out, touching the letters like they were sacred. "He tried," she said softly. "He tried so hard for you." I nodded again, tears spilling now. He was the only parent I ever had. Sophie stood abruptly, pacing. "I can't believe them. They let him plead for years and never even—" She broke off, shaking. "All this time I thought they were victims of circumstance, but they chose this." "They did," I said, "and they'll have to live with that." We sat there for hours, reading and rereading until the sun tilted through the windows and made everything gold. When Sophie finally spoke again, her voice was low, almost broken. "I used to think you hated us," she said, "that you didn't want to be part of the family, but you were the one they exiled." "I didn't hate you," I said gently. "I just didn't know you. I didn't know how." She nodded, tears spilling. I want to fix that. Me too, Emily added quickly. I don't know if we can undo everything, but we can start over. I looked at them, both of them, sitting there in Grandpa's kitchen, the same spot where he used to sip his coffee and tell me, some people won't love you the way you deserve, but that's their limitation, not yours. And for the first time, I felt like maybe I wasn't alone in carrying the truth anymore. That night, the three of us sat out on the porch, just like he and I used to. The letters rested on the table between us, lit by the warm glow of the old lantern. The crickets hummed their nightly chorus. Sophie spoke first. Do you think we should tell Mom and Dad we found these? Emily hesitated. What would it change? Nothing, I said quietly, but maybe that's the point. Sophie looked at me. What do you mean? They'll keep justifying what they did, I said. They'll call it complicated. They'll call it love in a different form. But we don't need their version anymore. We have the truth. Emily nodded slowly. And Grandpa's words. The night deepened, soft and heavy. Then, unexpectedly, Sophie reached across and squeezed my hand. We love you, Lydia, she said fiercely. I know it doesn't make up for everything, but we do. I know, I whispered. I love you both too. The lantern flickered, and for the briefest second, I imagined Grandpa sitting beside us, hat tilted, eyes crinkled, that small, approving nod he used to give when a hard truth finally landed. He'd told me once that forgiveness wasn't about erasing what happened. It was about planting something new in the ashes. That night, on that porch, under the hum of the fields, it felt like the first green sprout had finally appeared. 6 months later, the fields around my farmhouse were bright with late spring green. Every sunrise rolled over acres that once felt like exile and now felt like inheritance in the truest sense, something earned, not merely received. The letters still sat in a wooden frame on my mantel. I didn't keep them there to hurt. I kept them as proof that love could survive distance, lies, and silence, and still bloom when given light. Life had changed in quiet, good ways. Emily called every Sunday morning, usually from her kitchen, still in her pajamas, sipping coffee and half laughing at something her students had said that week. Sophie started coming by once a month with canvases in her trunk, paintings of fields, barns, or sometimes just the colors of the sky she saw on the drive here. The first time she painted my porch, she titled it The Driveway That Waited. When she unveiled it, I cried. So did she. Our relationship wasn't seamless, but it was honest. There were awkward pauses, emotional landmines, memories that came up and hit like old bruises. But we talked through them. We didn't pretend anymore. My parents, on the other hand, moved into a condo near the coast. Word spread through distant cousins. They're happy, they're keeping busy, they're in a retirement community now. I didn't attend the house sale. Emily went instead to make sure they didn't rewrite the story for the neighbors, she said dryly. She texted me afterward. They told everyone you were too busy to come. I didn't correct them. It's not worth it. And she was right. I no longer needed their version of events to die for me to live freely. Daniel and I were still together. If the farm was my anchor, he was the steady wind behind it, never trying to fix me, just walking beside me through the weather. He'd once said, "You don't have to be the strong one all the time, Lydia. You're allowed to be loved." It was the simplest sentence anyone had ever said to me, but it changed everything. We took trips, small ones, markets, hiking trails, the occasional city weekend. On one of those trips, we passed through the town where my parents' old house used to stand. The for sale sign was gone, replaced by fresh white shutters and a young couple's laughter spilling from the porch. It felt strange and peaceful, like seeing a ghost given new life. I didn't stop the car. I didn't need to. That summer, my sisters and I planned our first ever siblings-only getaway, a cabin near Lake Williston. The first night, we cooked too much pasta and drank too much wine. Emily insisted on making a campfire despite the drizzle. Sophie brought her guitar and strummed chords she barely remembered. Somewhere between songs and laughter, the three of us began telling stories, not the kind that hurt, but the kind that healed. Emily spoke of feeling invisible as the quiet twin. Sophie admitted she'd always feared that if she disappointed our parents, she'd be the next to disappear. And I told them something I'd never said out loud before. I used to stand at the end of Grandpa's driveway after every phone call, I said softly. I thought maybe one day I'd see headlights. I rehearsed what I'd say if you two stepped out of the car. What would you have said? Emily asked. I smiled faintly. Probably something ridiculous, like, "Do you want to see the chickens?" They both laughed, and for a moment so did I. But then Emily's laughter faded, replaced by tears. "We should have come," she whispered. "You couldn't," I said. "They made sure of that. But you're here now. That's what matters." We stayed up until dawn that night, sitting on the dock, our feet in the cold lake water. The horizon burned faintly gold. Sophie leaned her head on my shoulder, whispering, "We're a family now, right? A real one?" "Yes," I said, meaning it. "A different kind. The kind we choose." When we got home, I found something I hadn't noticed before, one last envelope tucked in the tin box. It wasn't addressed to my parents, it was addressed to me. I sat at the kitchen table, hands trembling as I unfolded it. The ink was faded, but the handwriting was unmistakably Grandpa's. "Lydia, if you're reading this, you're grown. I hope you've built something that feels like home. You've got strength that isn't loud, and kindness that isn't foolish. That's a rare mix. Remember, forgiveness isn't for the ones who hurt you. It's fertilizer for your own soul. Don't let the past choke what you're trying to grow. Love, always, Grandpa H." I sat there for a long time, the letter trembling in my hands. Then I went outside. The fields were alive again, wind sweeping through young corn, the hum of life moving forward whether you're ready or not. I whispered to the air, "I did it, Grandpa. You'd be proud." In the months that followed, we built rituals around that pride. Every year on his birthday, my sisters came out to the farm. We planted something new, sometimes flowers, sometimes trees. Emily said it was our way of leaving proof we were here. Sophie painted each planting, turning our small ceremonies into canvases of forgiveness. And I kept running the farm, profitable, purposeful, home. Sometimes I still thought about my parents, about the version of themselves they'd chosen to keep. I didn't wish them harm. I just wished them the clarity I'd found, the kind that only comes when you stop rewriting the truth. One quiet evening, Daniel joined me on the porch. The sky blazed orange. "You ever think about inviting them back into your life?" he asked gently. I thought for a long moment. Then I said, "They already had their chance. What I have now, that's the family I was meant to grow." He smiled, brushing his thumb over my hand. "Then keep growing it." So I did. Because family isn't just the people who raised you. It's the ones who meet you halfway, even after years of silence, and say, "Let's start again." It's the people who plant something with you, something that might just outlive the pain. And sometimes it's the letter you find years too late that reminds you, you were never unlovable. You were just waiting to be seen. The wind rolled through the fields like an answer, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the girl left behind on the driveway. I felt like the woman who finally came home.